Thank you so much for coming on a Friday afternoon.
Yes.
My name is Franky. Today I'm very excited because I'm able to share something that I'm passionate about, particularly with my teacher, Professor Angeline, who was actually my teacher when I was doing my master degree. So it's really a very, very, something that, really touches me. Now, today, okay, well, I have to get that. Is it this one, the clicker? Okay, so I have to make sure that it works. Now, originally, the topic is this one. And then after our discussion, and actually over IDD, actually Angel was in Canada, so we had a 1 hour discussion. And after 1 hour discussion, we changed the topic. And I'd like you to take a look at the changes in the topic. Now, Angel, would you like to tell us what changes have been made in the topic?
Okay. I seldom talk in such a noisy environment, but I guess in Hong Kong teachers are much better than me. That you always 好多時候都要好嘈吵嘅環境之下去溝通， so we have to communicate in a very noisy environment. But imagine that we have children. If just one single noise will aggravate them, right? Will make them really annoyed, uncomfortable, irritable, bad-tempered. So how can we help this kind of student? And they can be very intelligent. It's just someone like me, if you have lived in Canada for more than a year, then you suddenly lost the Hong Kong intelligence of adapting to noisy environments, okay? So what I'm saying is that student who cannot adapt to noisy environment is a perfectly okay student. But we want to have an infrastructure that will create a safe space for them. So I suggest changing it. Management for diversity is when you manage diversity, meaning, okay, I need to change you. I need to domesticate you. I need to manipulate you so that you are controllable. But I'm saying it's the other way around. It is management for diversity. It's not managing, controlling diversity.
Yeah, I think, well, that is well said. What I'm focused about is the second part of the question. That is engaging students with diverse needs and talents. Now, I don't know how you find this statement. I mean, this is something that we always talk about. But, when we go down into our classroom and then you walk inside, and I do believe that we always hear complaints. Complaint like, oh, students, they have behavioral problems, they're not capable, they have low motivation, their learning attitude is poor, and then, some of them actually are slow learner. How can I teach them when I am in a classroom? I don't know what to do. Now, usually, when we have all these complaints, we're based on deficit. We're thinking about, well, this is a classroom setting, and you're not surviving in this environment. So another area is, well, maybe another focus is not on student. Another focus is on teacher. That's why when you have chaotic classroom, like right now we have,
like this one,
a lot of noise, okay? People are not listening, but they're physically there. So then we would tell, well, teacher, you got some problem because you have poor classroom management, your teaching is boring, you don't know the students well, your pedagogy, and then your teaching is not inspiring. Now, it seems that our focus is on the teachers or the students, particularly when we are thinking about intervention strategy. So, and then we would tell teachers, oh, you need more training. We take them out of the context and then provide them with training. Now, I'm not saying that training is not okay. It's not, well, some training are very, very useful. But can we just rely on the training of the individual teachers as well as, fixing the problem of individual students to solve the problem that we're experiencing now in the classroom? So, Angel, pass it back to you. Should intervention focus only on students and teachers?
I'd like to mention a story. I was talking to Professor Staller from Education U of Hong Kong yesterday. And she said she has 30 years of working with teacher training. And yesterday she was telling me, whatever you teach your students, your teacher trainees, whenever you send them to the schools to do practice teaching, they will all become the same. They will all get assimilated into the school existing practices. So you teach them to do A, B, C. But in the schools, they will teach X, Y, Z because they all get assimilated into what the school has been doing. And then all the students will go back to the university and say, we don't need any training, okay? So you see, it's not about more workshops, more training. It's about the whole school, whether the whole school is changing. Or if you just change one component, that component teachers are blaming the principals, so and then all of them are blaming the students, and then all of them are blaming the parents. Okay, so we become a blaming culture, and nothing gets changed.
So before we talk about
the more progressive approaches, then she said no. Then the school principals will say, oh, the teachers, it's all the teachers who won't change. So the principals are blaming the teachers are blaming the principals, and then all of them are blaming the students, and then all of them are blaming the parents. Okay, so we become a blaming culture, and nothing gets changed.
So before we talk about what we are going to do, I would like to share a story about a teacher. Now, I have myself to blame because I'm kind of like a teacher trainer because I also help out with some courses at university. One day when I was teaching a class, 42 teachers, and we're talking about a curriculum adaptation, catering for learner diversity, and suddenly I spotted a female teacher. She was in tears. And I was very afraid, and I didn't look at her and looked the other way. So during the break, that teacher came up to me, and she said, well, I truly, agree with what you said. And then she was actually teaching in a primary school because she is so kind-hearted. So every year, the principal assigned her to teach the weakest class. So she said, it's okay, no problem. But she found that the teaching materials actually are not applicable to the students. So every single night, she is revising the teaching materials. She's thinking about a lot of activities which can engage students. And then so that, because the primary school student running, walking around, and she's thinking about a lot of activities. So always late into night, when the examination comes, teachers from other elite classes said, oh, we're not going to pay attention to your students, and this is the standard of our school, or this is the standard that our school expects students have. So all her students failed. The result is the parents blame the teachers, and then the students feel very unhappy about that. Even though that the teacher finds that during the learning process, the students are becoming more and more engaged. They really like the subject. They really feel, learning is so meaningful. But at the end of the day, the teacher was in tears. So if someone who believes in education for all, and who believe in teaching to according to the aptitude of the students, but they end up in tears, what's wrong with our system? Do you think that the only solution is we are giving them more training? So, Angel, any comment about this story?
I would throw the question back to you.
That's a very nice move.
So, when you have your child, imagine your daughter or your son. And every parent believes their daughter or son is very full of potential. But then if the only measure is a dictation or the end of semester test, if it's just one method to display the intelligence of your children. Now the system is like that. There's one ruler, one benchmark, one way to show your talents, your knowledge. And if you happen to be not fitting into that dimension, then you are classified as not meeting the standard. So the system has this assessment which only allows you to show your knowledge in one single standardized test. So that's why we heard many stories. Children who fail or drop out of the schooling system here, when they go outside of this schooling system, go overseas, then they can flourish, they can show their potential. So the teacher in tears, there's nothing wrong with the teacher, nothing wrong with the students, nothing wrong with doing all these activities which help the students to increase confidence. But if you only allow one way of showing your students knowledge, then it's going to defeat the purpose. So we need to actually think of ways of reforming the assessment. But the situation in most societies is the more wealthy people, if you are in international schools, if you're in a program, you don't need to go through the standardized test. You have multiple ways, project-based, portfolio-based approaches, instead of one single standardized test.
Yeah, that's so well said. The story actually haunted me for a few years because when a teacher came to me and she asked, Mr. Poon, can you talk to my principal? And I said, I look at her, what do you expect me to say? And actually, I didn't know what to say. And then I'm thinking about, is it more than just we're talking about individual? Now, we focus a lot about individual, fixing the teachers, fixing the students. Are there more about that? Now, usually we then jump to another end. We're talking about this is the mistake of the society, say, it is something that is hide up. So is there anything that we can do in the middle? That's why when Angel revised the topic, the title, you hear the word management. You hear the word infrastructure. So the intervention point actually is not on individual agents. We are not trying to groom teachers who are passionate about teaching, who have all the qualities. We are not investing on individuals. We're thinking about whether we can change another point. That is the management level. So I can see here from individual agents, school management, infrastructure, and then the ecology. And then our present focus is on this area. So, Angel, now we mentioned about the problems. So there is a whole concept called educational ecology. Would you like to say something about that?
You can see that he's always asking me to give you the theory, and he has all the practical answers. So he's positioning me as the boring professor. But I think he knows the answers already. That is, instead of just narrowing, saying, oh, there is a deficit in individuals, in our students, in our teachers, we try to change the environment. But we cannot change the whole society overnight. At least we can work on a whole school infrastructure approach. So that's exactly what Principal Poon, Franky, has been doing. So instead of giving you a boring answer, I will throw the ball back to Principal Poon.
That is so.
Instead of fixing the teachers, how do you fix the infrastructure of your school, of a school, which is feasible and doable?
That is so untrue about that boring part. Now, when we all know that, all the educational problem is not that simple or, single dimensional. There are many different aspects. So when we would like to start some changes, where should we start? How do we start it? From which point that we can change a little bit, and then the change can actually is, how can we, now my question is, how can we engineer the transformation of the so-called ecosystem, which is so grand and big, in a gradual, manageable, and sustainable way? Where to start? Now, this is the main question that we are asking. We are pressing towards an answer. And then I really like the way that when we had conversation, on phone, when you were in Canada, we have, I don't know how many hours, hours different.
8 hours.
8 hours. Now, you mentioned about flipping the model, and then can we initiate some fundamental and sustainable changes in our school system, where in the face of increasing learner diversity? And this is what we talk about. So this sharing, you're going to see some examples, but we spend some time to talk about the overarching concept that we will focus on school management structure instead of individual agents. We will not go high up suddenly in the air talking about, oh, the ecology and everything, surrounding that. So we'll focus on the middle part. So, Angel, we always talk about this is what we want. We want This is what we want. I mean, as a teacher, I believe that the classroom is the place where you love most. The classroom is the place where you exhibit, you show your professionalism to yourself, to your students, and to everyone. So we all want our classroom to be a place where learning is actively promoting. So this is what we would like to do. And as well, I'll try to summarize what Angel said. We focus a lot about individuals' capacity to cater for learner diversity. And usually this kind of training is decontextualized. So you will always hear teachers that, oh yeah, this is a very good activity, but it's not going to work in my school. It's not going to work in my classroom. I don't know whether you have this experience. Okay? Is that correct? Sometimes you think that, well, I hear some very good examples from some schools, but when it comes to your own setting, you find it, you stop there. So, and then what we are trying to do is, as Angel suggested in our conversation, is we try to flip the individual deficit model to an access-based model by building the collective capacity of school management team. Now, Angel, can you unpack some of the concepts? They're not boring, okay? Make sure that they're very interesting. Okay, can you unpack some of the important concepts here?
I think it is easier said than done. But the idea is we all have unique advantages and disadvantages. No one is perfect, right? As a teacher, as a school principal, as a panel chair. But when we team up our talents, we can 互補, we can cover each other. So that's what's meant by collective capacity. But all these years, if you look at the efforts of Education Bureau, it's always singling out, okay, this time we have teacher workshops. This time we have panel chair workshops. This time we have school principal workshops. But we never take a holistic school-based approach that is not just having individual groups of school personnel coming for the workshops, but looking at each individual school. Each school has its own unique ecology, its own advantages, disadvantages, and its own composition of staff members. So each school has a very unique portfolio or profile. So collectively, 可以互補, collectively, we multiply our talents and we cover up our disadvantages. Because no single person is all-rounded, is a perfect teacher. Even Principal Poon is not an all-rounded principal. Okay?
That is so true. Someone can tell you that is so true.
So it is not trying to build a superhero principal, a superhero teacher, or a superhero panel chair. It's about the whole school approach, building up, multiplying our capacities together.
Before we talk about examples, I'd like to introduce to you a concept that we try to use it in the things that we're doing, the overarching concept. Now, Angel has nicely mentioned the concept management. We're changing the management for diversity. To make it simple, I try to shorten it to diversity management, DM. Now, that is very important because, well, my view, and Angel can add a point that when we had a discussion, we have actually heated debate on something interesting. Now, I said that, well, in our society, if we think something is important, we put management after that. If we think information is important, we have information management. If we think that risk is important, we have risk management. If we think that business is important, now remember, BBA is actually a very new subject when compared with many other disciplines. When we think that business is important, then we have business management. So then afterwards, people will build knowledge, practices, concept, theories under this concept. So as far as I know, right now we still not yet have something called diversity management in our education field. So I had a discussion with Angel. Is it possible that we can start a new concept in our field, and then so that making sure that everyone is aware of this area of development?
Now, I have to tell you a story. When I was in Vancouver, I was driving and I saw a big van in front of me. This big van, can you imagine what's on the, it's called insect management. Now, we have insect management, we have risk management, we have data management. Management becomes a synonym for control. Classroom management, classroom control. Insect management, meaning they use the insecticide, but they don't say killing the insect. They say managing the insect. I was, wow, these Canadians, they were really good in using euphemisms. Instead of saying killing insects, they say, I help you to manage the insects in your house. Now, are we saying that diversity needs to be managed, needs to be controlled? Now, these are not insects. They are not cockroaches. They are not mice. They are not inanimate objects that you need to control. When we talk about our children, our students, our young people, they are not inanimate objects to be managed, to be controlled, to be manipulated. So that's why I said it is we are for them. The management team, the management infrastructure, we want to engage with diversity. We want to have a safe space for diverse students to grow. Some are very afraid of noise, like me. I feel so uncomfortable in a noisy environment, and some students are like that. Some are visual learners. Some are oral, that is, the auditory learners. Some are tactile learners. They need to have hands-on activities. We are all different. That's why we have diversity as human beings. That's why we are not robots. We don't come from a single mold. But when you say diversity management, it's like insect management. It's like killing the insects or controlling the insects. So that's why I have to have this heated argument. It is we are for them. We are not controlling them.
That's so true, Angel.
Yeah, we are not doing insect management.
That's why, I told Angel that today we have to bring this discussion on stage. You see what I mean? Because from my perspective, I'm thinking about that, because I'm from the management team. So I'm thinking about a lot of teachers think that, I don't want to see learner diversity because it's unmanageable. I can't handle. I hear a lot of people saying that. So my idea is, can you make it more manageable so that you will find it more welcoming? So I think that there is no right or wrong answer. But, we try to make sure that, all different ideas and views are brought to the table.
Now, for government, for people in power, they want to manage.
I'm not. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But we are not for controlling.
Yeah.
But
so true.
if even in a schooling system, the overarching aim is to manage, to control, to accommodate, to domesticate, like those insect management companies in Canada.
Yeah.
Then what are we doing? We are all managers. We are not educators, right? We are all controllers, right? We use the best technology to control, to manage, right?
When I go back into implementation, because today we're talking about the middle part. So I first started thinking about, if I have to tell people what we need to do, what we need to change, can I put it in a very simple way to help people understand? Now, this is not a comprehensive way, but this is a simple way. Now, I try to use but you can comment, later. If you want to run a successful tuck shop in school, okay, what do you need to do? I think, first of all, you have to know your students. If you sell them food that they don't like, your tuck shop will be closed very soon. So you have to understand what your student need and what they want, okay? So probably you have to know them. And then the second criteria is you have to give them choices. If you only have one choice of food, one type of food for them, probably student will run away. So can we kind of providing them with more choices? And then the third concept that we're talking about is, if there are like 300 students lining up, but there is only one staff member helping out, then it's not going to help. So in the idea is, well, if we want to run a successful tuck shop, providing for the students' needs, then probably we have to know the students well, and then allow choices, and then provide support. Now later, when you see more examples, this is based on these assumptions. Now these are assumptions. They are not golden rule. But this is the way that we think about, is there something that we can implement? Angel?
Yes, I think as all good metaphors go, certain aspects of the metaphors are important. So for this metaphor, it is knowing your students' needs, knowing their preferences, and maximizing the choices. So that's the point of this metaphor. But as with all metaphors, we cannot take every single aspect of the metaphor literally. Students are not our consumers. We are not service providers. So this is the only thing that I need to alert ourselves. That is, we need to understand students, we need to know their preferences, but we are not service providers. Right.
And then Angel is expert in many areas. One of the areas that she is expert in is critical pedagogy. Is it an area that you're kind of like
It's just to say, these days we are all thinking ourselves as consumers and service providers. You're either one of these, right? But our relationship with students, teachers, students, if we just think of them as consumers and ourselves as service providers, that's just one aspect. And there are aspects which we don't want us to become service providers. They become consumers. But I understand this metaphor not to highlight those consumption aspects. It is to highlight the need to understand students' differences and to provide different choices. But we don't need to use a consumption metaphor to bring out this point.
Yeah.
There can be other metaphors, like gardeners, right? We water the soil, and then each seed can grow in their own different way. They are all different seeds. Sometimes we cannot understand their needs until they grow to a certain extent. Sometimes we think, okay, student ABC needs X, ABC. But then until they allow space for them to grow, and then we observe, and then we know, oh, these students might need something else. It's not like doing a consumer survey. Well, if you emphasize understanding of students, I agree with this metaphor. But I don't think we are service providers. I would like to see myself as a gardener. Or we are also growing together with the students, because they will also teach us a lot about our limitations and how we can grow.
One part of the original topic of this sharing is connecting theory with practice. I think that is something that we are trying to do. Now, my part, I will talk about practice. And then Angel will help me to connect. Why do we have to connect theory with practice? It's because when you practice something, you narrow yourself down into a particular action, and you think that this is your whole world. With Angel, our dialogue, we're trying to open up more possibility. Even though when we're in the implementation level, we still have that particular practice, but we always have the broader conceptual thing or something that we have to guard against during our process of development.
I think one important principle that I like to bring to the table or to the stage is unpredictability. Management is against that, like risk management. You manage against unpredictability. But our children, we can never tell what they will grow into. Of course, we wish them all the best. If we we want to predict and try to control what they can grow into, then we might limit what they can grow into. It's only this point that I would like to alert all of us with the management metaphor.
Yeah.
But I agree with all the maximizing choices, understanding individual differences. I agree with all these principles. It's just metaphors can get us into the baggage of something that we might not have thought about.
Angel, we are going to show you the example later when we do it in our project. Thank you so much for Jockey Club sponsoring a project called Jockey Club Diversity at School. And then you will see a lot of unpredictability during the process of the project development, and then particularly when we have more and more schools joining us. Now, three things that we would like to, now let me use the word manage at this very moment. We're trying to manage data. If we want to know our students well, how can we manage data? What data do we need? The second question is, how about the curriculum? Okay, well, it seems to be controlled by the curriculum. We seem to be controlled by the assessment. But can we manage it so that the curriculum and then the assessment can serve the purpose of helping individual students? And then the last part is, now, imagine that right now in our classroom, one teacher to over 30 students. Do you think that, well, if you have a lot of good ideas, if you have a lot of activities, is there a possibility that we can have one more adult in the classroom, collaborating with the teachers, so that all students, they can be supported in the classroom? So these are the assumptions that we have. Now, basically, I'm going to show you some examples in between. Angel and I will try to comment on that. Now, when it translated down one more level, what we try to do is we are trying to do some student data profiling. And then the second thing that we do is we're trying to develop an inventory. Because, you know, my experience is that some teachers, they observe lessons, and their comments are always like, oh, this is a very good lesson. Oh, the teacher is quite hardworking. Oh, the students are very engaging. Now, we seem to have some very general description about good practices or just some general feel about what is good in classroom. Can we have a more systematic, clearer inventory so that we can conceptualize, understand, build upon good practices? And then the last thing is, now if we have one more adult in the classroom, is there the possibility that we can put not one teacher because it will be very, very expensive? Can we have a classroom learning support assistant in the classroom working alongside with the teachers? How should it be like? Okay, so basically these are the three strategies that we try to work on that. Now, and then what we try to do in short, actually what Angel and I, you know, we mentioned is, can we try to understand, to enhance the infrastructure to engage diversity from school management, and then do away with the so-called individual deficit mode, okay? And Angel here, anything to add? Okay, if not, I will just go through. Now, I'm going to show you a video because it's too vague to talk about that. Now, remember, the video that you are going to see is not a model answer, but that is an initial visualization of what it could be like. You see what I mean? Now, there will be a lot of unpredictability when more people try to build things upon this concept. Please accept all these irregular. This is not a model answer. But let me read out the whole paragraph first, and I'll show you a video. I have to thank Tracy Zhang, Dr. Tracy Zhang from Hong Kong U, and my teacher, Ms. Lee. She actually has come today. We put together this video within a few days, and it is shorter than 3 minutes. Okay, a cup noodle. So, but we are trying to show you how it would be like. A teacher, we're going to show how a teacher, after being empowered by the infrastructure, uses the student data profile effectively to inform pedagogical decision and collaborate with classroom learning support assistant as an additional support effectively. So this is words. And we're going to show you a short video showing how it could be possibly happen. Okay, again, I have to emphasize one thing. Within 3 minutes, we're not going to show you everything. It's going to show you what we think could be a possible way to enhance the infrastructure so that teachers, students, learning and teaching behavior can be changed for the benefit. And students would have probably the teachers know more about students' needs, thinking about maximizing the choices available for different students, as well as whether we can have some supporting colleagues entering the classroom, working alongside with teachers. So this is something that we think could happen. And then the reason why I stand here, at least as well as some of our team heads or team members coming here, is that we want more possibilities. Okay. Now, Angel, any comment on the video, or then I'll go ahead. Now, here I will go to another part. Now we are starting from here, and then gradually going to the working level. Now, I'm going to show you briefly what the data management system is about. Now, I think that, well, we always talk about we have to develop data using culture in school. We have to, data-driven policy making, evaluation. We have all these terms. But why is it so difficult and challenging to use data in school? Do you find it challenging? Do you find it difficult? And very time-consuming. Teachers said that, whoa, I have to, open all these Excel. I have to download these and look at that. Well, it's very hard. And then all the data actually scatter around different departments in the school. How can I collect it? So they have a lot of challenging things. So in our school, we have structured data, usually in our web SAMs. I know today probably I shouldn't talk too much about web SAMs because you heard news about web SAMs, but I know that it's actually very safe right now. They upgrade the system. And then we also have unstructured data in the school. Imagine in your school, you've got a lot of files containing different kind of data of students, and we also have some other data. Now, when you think about what you have, we all know that we have tons and tons of student data or student-related data. May I ask you first question? How much of them are actively and effectively used in your school practices? You collected them, right? And actually, sometimes it's quite painstakingly collecting them. So how much of them are actually you're using? So our question when we think about knowing students well, our question is there any way that we can systematically, holistically, and most importantly, effortlessly integrate all these scattered data sets among the school, visualize them in a way that all teachers can easily understand, and then ultimately is provide you with some analysis. And this is our question when we first started with that. So I have to thanks to our IT partner and then Atos, the biggest European IT company, providing support under this project. So we try to, when we first begin, we're thinking about, do we have common data structure among primary, secondary, or even special schools in Hong Kong? I think, if you're from the education sector here, you know that is the web SAMs. Everyone use the same data set. And then you put things up onto the server in web SAMs. But I don't know how often you download the data for analysis. And then so when we first started, we identify a common, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to optimize the use of existing data. So we find that all these data actually can be drawn from our existing web SAMs data sets. So this is how we designed it. Now, we went through starting from one school, and then we have校本多元, another secondary school, who is the principal is an expert in IT, and then he tried to do another round, and then we also have two more primary schools, that is 阿斯利維利小學 and 李金小學, two other primary schools joining us, so that we try to make it more comprehensive and useful across different settings. And we will try to spill it over and encouraging more schools to join us so that we can further enhance the system. Now, I'm going to show you some idea about this student data profiling system. if you have data already in your websams, now you just have one server, just place alongside with your existing one. They won't go beyond the 4 walls. So for security level, we are not connecting anything outside your 4 walls. It's just, this is your internal server, and this is the DM server. This is actually within the 4 walls. Now, if we want to transfer 20 years of data, student data, about over 3,000 student profile, from different data sets, 7. It's about 81,000 records per year, and then we have over 1 million records in total. Do you know how long does it take? So that we can have all the visualization that the coming slides will show. It takes 7 minutes. Okay? So the first idea is we have to make sure that it is simple. It is easy. We don't want to have, like 100 teachers lined up to type in data, reinventing the wheel. Okay, but, well, are they useful? Our second question is, when we are developing this, these are the overarching questions that we ask ourselves. What is, well, how can the data platform help us to formulate school plans, to add value to existing implementation, to set future direction, to evaluate current practices, to discover new insights? These will be the questions along our development stages. We will keep asking that. And then what could be achieved if we know our students better? No matter how many things you do, you always have to come back to a very fundamental question. Why are you doing this? Because you want to do this, or because you want to achieve something which is more important to you? Now, I'm sorry, this is a lot of stuff. This is the first page. And then I will roll it up a little bit, and then you know what I'm talking about. If I would like to locate one student, then instantly I know. Now, the black line actually is the average of the class. Then you can instantly know the performance of the students in each subject, and then you can also look at the spider web, the strength and the relatively weaknesses of the students. This is only one of the many, many, many functions that we can develop. And then one more example, you can also track the learning of the students across different exams, across year, with one press of button. And then you can also ask some more questions. For example, if I ask you a question, now you have many ECA activities, extracurricular activities in your school, right? If I want to ask you a question, which ECA club or which ECA club members have the best academic results? Can you answer me this question? If you need to answer this question, how much effort you have to put into? Academic performance is a totally different data set. ECA participation is a totally different data set. But if you want to see the relationship between them, if that is something that you want to know, so we can do it. And then I'll just show you. And then if a principal would like to know, in Form 2, I would like to know which type of ECA are more. Then you press another button. You know that your students' characteristics, your students' interests, then you can map across these two data sets and tell your colleagues that we should have more music activities. Because actually 30% of our students are very, very interested in music, but you are now providing 10% of your ECA activities related to music. So this is what we are trying to do is, we have all these data. Do you agree? We have all these data in the school, but we never use it effectively because of the huge difficulty that it involves at present stage. And then another thing is, I mentioned about the average as well as different school activities. So for some teachers who would like to say, oh, I noticed that one club actually attracts students who are academically more struggling. So can I add some extra activities which is related to learning and teaching in that club, secretly? Without saying that, I will send you all to the tutorial classes. Don't do that, okay? So you try to do it in a tactful way. So is it a way that we can do? And one more example, I really like the way, I love the concept that Angel mentioned, unpredictability. Because when we have more and more schools coming to join us, they have so many good ideas. You know, one teacher came to me and said, oh, every year we have to decide who will repeat Form 1. How can I make this decision? Then I'll say, well, why don't we try this? For example, in our system, we can select 3 students. They are wrong names. They do not exist. Okay, don't worry. Okay, and then we can compare them instantly. Their contact grade. You know, this is their absent rate. This is their subject. And you can see the line. The higher, the better marks. And then you can also know whether they have, you know, in red is the punishment, green is the awards. And then you can instantly, in 2 seconds, you know, if you really need to compare them, okay, if you really need to compare them. And then you also know, if you want to dig into the details, you press another button, you see the details of the activity that they engage in. Now, this is what we want. They are not new data, but they are not integrated, they are not visualized, and ultimately, they cannot provide you with useful, meaningful information that helps you to make the decision. So, so this is what we try to do is, the reason why in the second stage of our project, we will invite more schools from different backgrounds. Because I always believe in teachers. They always ask very interesting questions, very practical questions. They will say that, well, can you help me to solve this problem? And this is where a project should be about, exploring the many possibilities that we can see. Now, let me repeat one thing. We are not dictating your decisions. We are not dictating the policy that you are going to adapt. But we are facilitating you to make good use of the data. If you're interested to see the particular correlation between one part to another part, you are welcome to do that. It's just one click and you see the pattern. How you interpreted it, how you're going to use the data is totally up to the data user, the policymaker. And this is what diversity at school means. The project is diversity at school. We don't want to dictate what schools need to do because we believe in diversity. Now, Angel, I'm sorry, very long-winded thing. Now, we had another very interesting discussion before this seminar. It's about maximizing choices. We seem to have someone who is talking a lot about the concept and all these things. And then, and before this sharing, I asked Angel a very simple question. I said, Angel, what should maximizing choices look like? Okay.
Okay, before answering this question, I'd like to mention the big data analysis. The big data analysis is just one dimension of information. It's quantifiable. That is, everything can be turned into a number. So we understand that we need both kinds of information to understand the diversified profiles of our students. So this is very important. I'm not saying big data analysis is not important. It's very important because of our cognitive attention span. As a teacher, you cannot activate all the information you know about certain students. But the big data gives you information that is quantifiable, data that can be translated into a number. And it cannot replace your own impressions, your own experiential understanding of the diversified profiles of students in the schools. But this is important data to supplement teachers and panel chairs' impressionistic understanding of the diversified needs and profiles of our students. So we don't want to just play up the quantifiable data without also supplementing the numbers with our own intuition as school teachers and school principals. Sometimes the student might be very low on all quantifiable dimensions, but your impression of the student gives you a hunch about something else that cannot be represented by the quantifiable data. So that's a supplementary. We cannot just have big data. Big data analysis is one dimension to supplement our own holistic intuitions about the diversified profiles. It's basically about profiling students. So your second question, choices. In a school, the choices, students don't have many choices. Teachers don't have many choices. Principals don't have many choices. So talking about maximizing choices is within some parameters. So for example, if we want to make knowledge accessible to students, then how do we present the knowledge? We can present the knowledge like us, just linguistic, verbal, right, with a PowerPoint. Now, for example, if you're a science teacher, you want to teach photosynthesis. This is in your syllabus. I know Principal Yao is a science teacher, so he's an expert in photosynthesis. So science teachers, when you present the conceptual knowledge of photosynthesis, you can give a definition to students. So photosynthesis is a process by which solar energy is converted into chemical energy in the form of starch by the chlorophyll in the chloroplast of the green plants. So you can present knowledge in terms of this linguistic presentation, but you can also present it in terms of diagrams. You can also present it in terms of a video or even role-playing with students playing the sun, students playing the green plants, and also by experimenting, students actually engage in hands-on inquiry, activities, experiments. So using, we call these modalities or multisensory kinds of input, multisensory activities to engage all kinds of students. Some students are better with linguistic information, some with visual, some with drama or acting. So that's maximizing choices within our syllabus. We still need to teach photosynthesis, but we try to use multimodalities, multiple sensory mediums to make the information accessible to learners with different learning styles.
So that is so well said. I mean, we always hear about multiple intelligences, multiple ways to engage students. But, in this project, with the help of Dr. Lou Yunyi, YY Lou, and then we try to develop an inventory, try to name them, try to explain them, try to collect relevant examples, because I think we teachers, we need to learn with a structure, right? So this is one of the ways that now we don't have the answers. When we talk about multiple, there could be open-ended, something that is not fixed. So here, well, if you know differentiated instruction, you must know her, okay? Carol Ann Tomlinson. I'm very fortunate. I think this is a very good quote. Students learn best when learning environment, factor number 1, content, process, product can be differentiated appropriately. So her assumption is that within the classrooms, there are students with different readiness level, different learning profiles, different needs, okay? And then we are very fortunate because I, together with 5 of my colleagues, we went to Brisbane this summer to attend a workshop of Professor Carol Tomlinson, and then she had a DI workshop. And then I talked to her. She said that I'm considering coming to Hong Kong, and now she will work with KG5, and then they will have a workshop, and then she also really welcome Hong Kong teachers who are interested to join it. So you don't have to fly like 9 hours to Brisbane, Australia, and then we're bringing this wonderful person to Hong Kong. Now, here, this is what I mentioned. Thanks to the Hong Kong Youth Research Team, we try to first, through over 60. Now, you know that this year, classroom observation is so difficult because you don't even have classes sometimes. So we collected over 60 classroom practices and teacher having in mind that I'm trying to provide choices to kids. Then the research team came into the classroom and observed. And they try to make sense of the things that teachers are doing. So, and then they came up with a very long but very systematic inventory list. Well, Angel, what should an effective or useful inventory be like?
I think there's no universal criteria, but one is to have tons of examples, video classroom clips to show actual teachers in actual classrooms dealing with actual scenarios. So, and then to have some classification and some labeling of different scenarios, different contexts, and then different challenges, and then different possible strategies to deal with the challenges. So it's kind of giving you a meta language or meta vocabulary to talk about how teachers can have alternative strategies when confronted with a classroom task or classroom scenario.
Thank you very much. Now, and you can see from here, just give you an idea. You know, we have A1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then B1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 10 minutes left. I make sure that. Now, if you have questions, because I'm supposed to leave the last 10 minutes for Q&A, but usually when the Q&A section starts, no hands will raise up. So we're trying to observing. If you do have any question, put up your hand anytime from now. Now, we try to, codify it, name it, describe it, and then making sure that we have, relevant examples. These are very long lists because it actually kind of like summarize. Now, the reason why we do it is because we want to make all these good practices learnable, transferable, adaptable, and that's our focus. It's not just, good practices, good practices. Now, I'm sorry, probably today we may not have time to really see the videos. In the project, near the end of the project, we will try to really build an online inventory where schools and teachers can have access to that under this framework, and then you can make reference for it, and then you can do your internal professional development. You can have a lot of other professional discussion beyond this. But I'll just show you an idea is whenever we record the interaction in the classroom, we try to identify the elements to describe what is it about that video or that practice that can cater for learner diversity. And that's the whole purpose. I'll just show you some ideas, team teaching, how we are going to do it, what kind of, things that we can identify from that practice, so that it can be understood. And then when you're teaching a particular, I spot a teacher here, it's actually on the photo, James. And then we have mobile phones and then all these things. Now, I'm not going to show the video because we probably will run out of time. I would like to quote this: a key goal of differentiated instruction is not because we want to offer choices. This is only the means. The end is to maximize the learning potential and outcomes of students. So this is an ongoing process. If you say that, can it really work? I don't know. Try, evaluate, observe, and then retry. And this is the whole learning and teaching process. I think that is very important. But if you don't have a structure to start doing anything, then nothing useful will accommodate. So now, Angel, one more thing that I would like to back into that is we can see a lot of terms and concepts there. If we want to build knowledge management as a field, so why terminology or this kind of language are so important to?
It's just giving us a handle to reflect on the bits and pieces of information. So by classifying different strategies and then labeling them as strategies potentially good for different kinds of challenges, you are actually giving you a meta language or meta vocabulary to discuss the strategies for different scenarios and also to critically reflect on and improve on. So this happens to all disciplines. So that's why in science knowledge and math knowledge, you all have within your discipline you have your own conceptual knowledge codification. So for education, teachers, experienced teachers have tons of good experiences, but they can do it. They might not be able to articulate it, to share it with others. Then how can we share good practices? So one way is to have the actual practices in the video clips, and then to kind of classify these good practices into suitable for different challenging scenarios and give them a term. So that's good for sharing, for discussing, for reflecting, for improving. So all knowledge building goes like that. But for our Chinese history, we always go through apprenticeship. So don't ask questions, don't talk about it, just observe and then do what I show you.
Wow, that is a very key point, because my observation is that I observe a lot of good practices. When I ask the teacher, would you like to share with others? Oh, no, I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it. Now that really hinders the development of our professional practices and the transfer of professional practices. And that's why today we are not working together to write a paper, to write a book chapter. We're trying to develop more relevant vocabulary, terminology that can help teachers to confidently, collectively articulate their practices so that our knowledge can build up more systematically.
Just as a concrete example, we have been talking about differentiated instruction, differentiated assessment. So basically, is you don't have the same classroom with same group of students doing the same things at the same time with the same teacher. Everybody is just like that. You can have different students doing different tasks, different levels of tasks, and at different times, different stages. So there's differentiate. But I cannot tell you a whole bunch of things. I can just say differentiated instruction, or differentiated assessment, or differentiated tasks. Then these are the terminologies, but under each I can show you examples. I can unpack each term with some explanations. Next time I see you, I don't need to repeat the same paragraph. I can just say, oh, differentiated assessment, differentiated materials.
Yeah, that is so important in our field. Now, the last part, in the 3 minutes video, you kind of have a feeling of, the classroom learning support assistant. I'm not going to show you the details, but at least you know that when there's one more paraprofessional in the classroom, there could be more possibilities. And then what we would like to achieve, we're thinking about whether we have resource corners for the students who would like challenging tasks, or students who would like more remedial support. It's for everyone. We're trying to, think about different things. Now, basically, near the end of our presentation, I know that this is a very professional occasion, so the time is very strict. Now, we're trying to summarize it a little bit. Our focus in this project, we try to focus on the infrastructure so that we can know the students. We allow more choices in our teaching, and ultimately we provide effective in-class support to students. They don't have to wait until 4 p.m. to see their tutor. They don't have to wait until 10 p.m. in the evening for support. They can get the support right inside the classroom, right at that time, because our students don't have that patience to wait for 6 hours for support, okay? So, and ultimately, Angel, I would like you to, before we end, we talk a lot about infrastructure, and we mentioned the ecosystem. And I would like you to comment or to wrap up a little bit about the potential of this project or this concept.
Right. Can I go back to just a little bit of this?
Yeah.
We know that students are all different, and teachers are all different, and we allow different pathways or different ways of engaging the students, and we provide different kinds of support for different students. So, and then you're asking me about the vouchers. I think you are the expert of the vouchers, so please go ahead.
Okay, in our project, we make it very cautious that we are trying to base on the voucher. That is, what do we want to nurture? Okay, we have to be very clear about what we want to do. The second thing is we have to capture good practices. Now, capturing good practices is not something that we are born to be good at. Okay, and then with the help of researcher, scholar, we try to structure it in a way that can be transferable, can be understandable, can help us to develop our professional. And then the ultimate thing is we picture it. We make it to be something simple so that we know when we see the picture, we know what is missing. What should be the other round of nurturing when you see the picture at this moment. So this is the driving force behind our project as well as the things that we are doing. And then ultimately, because I think I have 1 minute left, we have 1 minute left. You would like to talk about it?
And DF is diversity friendly, so we need to have a school atmosphere which is friendly to diversity.
And then we show this one is because we want to tell
DF.
you that we mean it. It's going to be something really, we want to establish it into a field, into something that can, group together important concepts and theories. And then, Yunyi, Dr. Low, and then this is what she said. What they need is infrastructure and more practical strategies. And that is what we, frontline educators, we want to move that forward. And then we have to quote EDB, things. And then they mentioned value in 2017, value diversity as an asset. And then the whole project is not about changing students, not changing teachers. We are changing schools for them to be more inclusive, responsive to the needs of all children. And that's what we aim at. And then ultimately, we are not fixing the students. We don't think that they are in deficit. We are assuming that every student is different. We are putting them in the right place. We're providing them with the possibility to grow. And then so that our student will be like this. And then we're celebrating diversity in school and ultimately celebrating diversity in society.
And not really paying lip service to it.
Not really.
By building the infrastructure.
Now, if you're very interested in what I said, because we don't have time left, go to the website and then do give us email, do give us call, and then we hope that this is the beginning of the discussion and it will continue. Diversity will continue to dominate the discourse in education. May I invite you to give a very big hand to Angel, who are flying all the way from Canada.
Thank you.
And then thank you so much for spending your time on a Friday afternoon
Thank you for
with
coming.
us. Thank you.
And thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Lin and Mr. Poon. So we still have time for the Q&A section.
Oh, really?
Yes, we have 5
Okay.
minutes left.
Okay. Any question? The reason why I asked, because, in the first section, the keynote, I was the only one who put up the hand and asked the only question. So I didn't, so if anyone would like to, any question?
And it's also the
Now,
dialogue.
you can ask in 廣東話,
係啦，
普通話。
廣東話，或者是普通話。
也可以啊，聽得懂啊？有冇問題想問？Any question?
我哋第一次嘗試用個 dialogue 咁嚟俾個 keynote，instead of 一個人咁 present。
And Angel, this is very challenging to me, not to you.
To everybody，
To everybody. Yeah.
因為 learning 係有個 dialogue，係嘛
Yeah.？
我哋同學生都係。
Okay.
Ah,
thank you
呢個-
very- Mark. Yes.
我想問下，咁因為開場白嗰陣你講咗，好似有啲拗撬，咁實在我哋而家應唔應該用 manage 呢個字咧？
我覺得每樣嘢都唔係極端嘅，唔係 binary 嘅，係 both and 嘅。咁 as long as 我哋梗係需要有 manager 咯，因為有人幫我哋 manage 好個。但係我又需要知道係有 unpredictability， 有啲 elements 係冇辦法 manage 嘅。就算你生個仔女出嚟，你想 manage 佢都 manage 唔到。學生亦都係咁，所以係需要有 certain extent of predictability 同埋 design management。但係有 certain predisposition 就係我哋要見到 unpredictability 嘅時候咧，我哋唔係想 control 佢，而係去睇下，咦，好得意喎，可能學生發展到啲新嘅嘢出嚟。咁喺一個 tension 裏邊咧，就會有啲好嘅嘢走出嚟。如果係一言堂咁咧，冇。所以今日我哋專登即係做一個 devil's advocate，佢講 A， 我又講少少同 A 唔同嘅嘢。咁喺我個 dialogue 裏邊有啲 tension 咧，會走啲新嘅 idea 出嚟。咁所以我哋係需要 management，但係我哋又知道啦，世事原是變幻，原是永恆啊嘛。即係我個年代就會聽過呢首歌，就係唔係所有嘢都 manage 到，亦都唔係一定係好啊。所有嘢都 manage 到，未必真係咁好。咁所以我覺得就係 hold these two ideas in tension， 咁就係最 ideal。
And my short answer to you is I will continue to use diversity management. And then,
and I will continue to use management for diversity.
And then I will continue to ask, right now when we see each other, we will say, 食咗飯未? Have you had dinner, lunch, or meals? And I hope in the future, in our education field, we will say, have you DM 咗未? When we meet each other in the education field. So this is what we are going to do. Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you.